If you're anywhere out there on the internet, you've probably heard the term Claude Code a whole bunch in the past couple weeks here. And I've been lucky enough to work and use Claude Code for the past couple months now. You'll even see some LinkedIn posts from mine where I was really starting to dive deep into it, using and building AI agents for some of my software development projects. With that said, in this video, I am going to give what I am calling the ultimate starter guide for Claude Code, specifically for revenue teams and how revenue teams can be using this, like sales, marketing, customer success. I really do think there are some use cases and implementations out there that can allow a team to 5x or 10x their output using these tools. So without further ado, let's dive right into it. So first off, what is Claude Code? Claude Code is Anthropic's agentic coding tool, and it really lives in the terminal right now, right? There's not really a great UI for it. It's in something called the terminal. What's great about it is it's not just a coding tool, even though we're mainly using that for a lot of it. It's really an intelligent automation assistant. That paired honestly with Opus 4.5 makes it one of the strongest AI implementations I've ever seen. And it almost feels like AGI, right? And the beauty of this tool is it allows you to do a couple things, right? It can connect directly to your CRM, right, through things like MCPs. It can help you automate repetitive go-to-market tasks. It can help you enrich and clean your data. It can help you generate reports and analysis. It can execute multi-step workflows with natural language, right? So kind of think of it as having a tireless operations analyst who can talk to all your tools and execute tasks for you while you focus on strategy. And the beauty of what makes it different is it really understands context, right? When you provide it with the right context, it also is able to adapt to changing requirements, can handle complex multi-step processes, and it kind of sort of reasons as if you're working with a human, right? So why should revenue teams really care about this? Well, I think in the traditional sense of like these pre-built workflows, they're very like rigid, right? If then statement logics for the most part require a lot of manual setup and limited reasoning capability, right? So what makes Claude Code different is it really does understand context and nuance. It's able to handle changes in requirements, like I said, but really it handles complex multi-step processes, right? And this leads to real impact for go-to-market teams, right? So if you're within the sales function, a world before Claude Code is probably manual CRM updates, scattered data, right? Through after a successful Claude Code implementation, you're filled with automated enrichment, instant insights. For marketing, right, you probably have siloed campaign data, manual reporting, right? With Claude Code, you're going to get this sort of connected attribution, AI generated analysis. And for customer success, you're going to get things like proactive risk identification, right? Instead of having this sort of reactive health monitoring. So how do you get started and use this magical tool of Claude Code? So I'm going to make a more in-depth video on how to implement and install Claude Code. However, just at a high level here, you use this in terminal. You're going to run an npm command, right, to install Anthropic's Claude Code, and then you're going to just run Claude to start it, right? And once you're in Claude Code, you really are able just to analyze and deal with Claude Code in plain English, right? Without having to write code, you could just type into the terminal anything you'd really like, and it will react to it. So there are a couple key pieces, and this is what you're going to see floating around right now on LinkedIn. A lot of different folks trying to push out different Claude Code implementations. And I just want to give you an in-depth breakdown on what it all means and how does it really exist. So number one, we have sort of our project playbook, which is the claude.md file. MD here stands for Markdown, right? And essentially what this is it's a configuration file that tells Claude everything about your project, your processes, and your preferences, right? So here you can really define out different things like your ICP or what data you're using or what CRM you have, right? So for example, for RevOps here, if you see on the right side, we have a RevOps automation project and we talk about our sales process, right? Lead to MQL, MQL to SQL, SQL to opportunity. are data standards, some forbidden actions, etc. And really, this sort of acts as kind of like your playbook for everything RevOps, to sort of give Claude the context on how you operate as a business. That now starts to expand into other features. Another feature that we have here is the slash commands. Slash commands allow you to create sort of saved prompts for reoccurring tasks. So for example, if you wanted to create a saved command that scores leads, right, as you see here on the right side, you can create a command that says \score leads, and you provide it with a file, essentially, right? So in this slash command that you end up creating, so you'll end up creating that under the commands directory within the .claude folder. You're going to put in there sort of a description on what you want it to do. So in this example here, we have, score leads based on ICP fit, and then we have some rubric on what is the ICP fit scoring. And essentially what we would do is provide it with like a CSV file or a document file. So essentially what we would do is just write \score leads in our Claude terminal and give it the file. And from there, it will automatically process that file based on the details you've provided in the prompt. So another thing in the Claude Code tool belt that is super helpful when you're working on this stuff, something called hooks. Hooks are kind of like the guardrails and the triggers that you need. So for example, you can create a hook here that attempts to prevent bad CRM updates, right? Or auto documenting changes, right? So for example, on the left here, I showed a table here that shows some hooks when it runs and the go-to-market use case. So for example, if you were to use the pre-tool use, it'll run before any action, and then it'll validate data before the CRM updates. So essentially a hook allows you to create this guardrail to prevent incorrect actions from occurring, or to create and process actions that should run after specific parts of the system run. The next one here you're probably familiar with because this was very popular a couple months ago. It is the MCP, the Model Context Protocol. And what this does is it really allows us to integrate external systems into our Claude code. So for example, we can install the HubSpot MCP and then say to it, hey, show me all the deals in the negotiation stage worth more than 50K. And it would return to me all of those records. So there are a lot of like these pre-built MCP servers that allow you to connect your Claude Code implementation into your Claude Code instance. So as you can imagine, this will create a whole bunch of new use cases and features that you can really use Claude Code for to implement and improve and expand your RevOps operation. Another one we have here is sub-agents. These are specialized AI agents for focused tasks, right? They have their own context window. And essentially what this does is it allows it to not be persuaded by things in your main conversation. You can pull up a sub-agent on the side essentially to process deals within its own context window, and allows it to perform tasks under a very focused mindset and a focused scope. So built-in sub-agents that we have here are general purpose, so complex multi-steps, right? There's the plan sub-agent, which allows you to do research and planning. And then there's the explore sub-agent, which allows you to like understand code bases, for example. So an example of a sub-agent here on the deal reviewer, right? So this AI agent or this sub-agent, its job is to review deals for completeness, right? And we gave it some tools, and essentially we give it instructions on, okay, you are a deal quality reviewer, check for required fields, flag risks, and then output for us the healthy deals, the at-risk deals, and the action items. So this you can sort of think of as sort of like your intern. You could say, hey, run the deal reviewer every week to get us all of the bad deals and all of the good deals. Rather than writing it out in the MCP every time and, querying the MCP, this sub-agent can be specialized in creating that specific output that you're looking for. Hey, real quick, sorry to take you away from the video, but if any of the tech or anything that I've described in this video sounds super cool to you and interesting, and you're looking for some help implementing this for your team, click the link in the description to get a free 30-minute consultation to figure out how we can implement this and other great ideas to your go-to-market strategy and help your RevOps team 10x their output. Now, back to the video. Another great one is skills. Skills are really what extend Claude and allow it to do a whole bunch of new features. So for example, we could add in a Excel skill that will automatically produce an Excel file for any kind of output that you're doing, right? So for example, you can create a pipeline forecasting spreadsheet. You can describe all the columns and then have Claude pump out a Excel file that is right on your local machine, and you're able to download it and store it and use it wherever you see fit. And it can essentially grab and manipulate all of these data points using things like MCPs, subagents, etc. to create these outputs. So skills is sort of a modular capability that kind of that extends Claude's functionality. Another great one that is important to know, and this is probably what you're seeing a lot of these days, are these sort of plugins where it's a complete workflow package. Plugins, they bundle in multiple features together for a complete workflow. So for example, you could install sort of like this complete RevOps toolkit with one command, right? And this is what you're probably seeing floating around a ton by folks. You could just do plugin install, and it will, let's say there's like a pipeline manager, you could download the plugin and set it up real quickly. And that essentially is a combination of things like subagents, hooks, skills, etc., all in one package. So when you're using Claude Code, a great feature that a lot of people don't know about is checkpointing. Checkpointing allows you to sort of save automatically the state and captures different points within your conversation so that you're able to go back and rewind and revisit what was said. So for example here, if you see on the right side, there's a use case for, you can ask Claude to update 50 contact records in your CRM export. And halfway through, you realize the logic is wrong. So there's two ways to use checkpointing. You could hit escape, the escape button, top left button on your keyboard twice, or you could do /rewind to access these checkpoints. So if you find that you've made a mistake like this and your files have been edited, right? Maybe you have an Excel file that it's working in and it's editing. You can use this checkpointing feature to restore that Excel file to the original state. So this is a very important safety net that you must be using and must be aware of, because AI, when it runs loose a little bit, can definitely create issues as it begins to hallucinate. Another important one here is extended thinking. Using sort of so going back to prompt engineering, thinking about how you're phrasing your prompt is important. And using words like think will make it do a standard extended thinking. Think harder will make it more intensive. And then ultra think will use the maximum reasoning depth. And what this allows you to do is really tinker with how complex and how many tokens you want to use for your workflow. Some things might be simple, right? Like, hey, write for me a quick email and, think. I might not need to think ultra hard for that. Or for example, here are my last 10 sales call transcripts. Think ultra hard and try to determine all of the patterns and the data points that I can use to lead to successful sales calls in the future. This is where deep analysis really comes in, and you should use it accordingly and not always use UltraThink, because it's going to eat up a lot of your credits and it's going to change your cost structure for Claude Code. Another important one here is permissions. I've heard horror stories of AI deleting complete directories because it misunderstood what it was doing. It's very important to put permissions in place to protect your sensitive files and really try to limit it to be working within a single file directory. And on the right side here, you can see, so this is a setting that you put within the settings.json, and you could put read-only permissions or write permissions, and you can deny or allow different tools, right? So grep here, for example, is a search tool. You might not want Claude Code searching all of your files. So here you could either allow it or deny it. So permissions, a very big one that is super important. Output styles. This one is an interesting one. So output styles is one that folks don't use often, I believe. If you have consistent outputs that you use company wide, whether it be branding or language or the method you guys present ideas, you can configure outputs within the Claude.md to really ensure that those outputs all get aligned regardless of what you're doing. So for example, here on the right side, you'll see there's a section that ends up getting created that you can create that is output preferences. So when it's generating a report, use an executive summary format. You know, when you're analyzing data, show your methodology briefly, etc. You can really tailor it, whether it be brand or voice, or you can dictate how you want Claude Code to operate. So here are a couple like use cases. Now that we know all the different tools within our tool belt, here are some like the use cases that I've actually used with clients and built out. So a weekly pipeline hygiene, right? This is a 2-hour manual process that I've seen actually some teams spend more than 2 hours a week on this, just working through different deals and cleaning it up, right? So the problem is there's sometimes a lot of stale deals. There's sometimes missing next steps, inconsistent data quality, etc. So using Claude Code, you can create a solution that analyzes every single deal within your pipeline, and within minutes, it can produce a consistent criteria that is applied every time. It can give you actionable recommendations, and it could also track the pipeline health, right? So on the right here, you can see this is like a short little write-up example. Analyze our HubSpot pipeline, identify deals with no activity, 14 days, etc. For each issue, list the name, the deal name, the owner, and the amount, and suggest specific next actions. So just putting together this report took teams that I've worked with hours. We were able to get it done in minutes with this use case. A use case for the marketing team, right? Multi-touch attribution, which is a huge one. Connecting all that data and trying to make something valuable out of it is always an issue for a lot of these teams, right? So here's the real problem. Data is scattered across platforms. There's a lot of manual spreadsheets that are going around and being consolidated. There's inconsistent attribution logic sometimes, and it's time intensive. So when you create an AI agent or a package that can do multi-touchpoint attribution analysis, you're going to get connected data across systems. You're going to be able to form a consistent attribution methodology. You're going to be able to get strategic insights, not just data, and repeatable with one command. Once again, another example here, pull the closed won deals from the last quarter. For each deal, trace all the touch points, calculate all these different values, and then identify the highest ROI channels and content in most winning journeys. This is a use case for the customer success team. I think a big thing is the proactive churn detection that we've been seeing. So the main problem we have is right now churn is very reactive, right? So you're reacting to customer issues, health scores based on lagging indicators, manual account review process, and missing early warning signs. When you create an implementation with Claude Code that is able to result in a proactive approach, you can have a very data-driven prioritization method. You can get consistent risk analysis and then actionable next steps for your customer success team. So for example, we can create an AI agent that will do a customer health analysis. So for each customer, gather product usage or flag accounts with any risk signals and assign a risk score at the end. And get all this data for us, we can get it on a daily basis, on an hourly basis. We can really get proactive with the churn detection method. So here are some 10 best practices that we found to be very important. So number one, start with read-only, right? Be very limited in the scope that you give Claude Code until you've become more familiar with it. Document everything in claudecode.md. It really helps you ensure that the output and the inputs produce a better result. Create guardrails with hooks. Build a command library for yourself. Use sub-agents for complex tasks. Enable extended thinking when necessary. Set up permissions early. Use checkpointing as a safety net. Version control your configs. And last but not least, iterate on your prompts. Save those good prompts and work on improving them. So I always love to leave you guys with a checklist so you can sort of create your own Claude Code implementation internally. So here's kind of a 4-week sprint or onboarding path that I put together. Think foundation. Number 1, install Claude Code, set up your go-to-market strategy, and start building out your Claude.md. Try 5 analysis only prompts and experiment with Rewind. In week 2, start making those more advanced connections. Connect the MCP to your CRM, connect Slack for notifications, run your first cross-system query, right? And test extended thinking. Week 3 is where you start diving into automation. Create a custom /command, set up some pre-tool use validation hook, build post-tool use logging hook, and create a custom sub-agent. And lastly, week 4 is where you start to scale up. Once you got into the groove of things, start to document 3 reoccurring tasks as commands. Set up team-wide permissions, share commands with teams, and measure time saved. So at a quick glance, in this video, you could take a screenshot if you'd like. Here are some of the key quick references that are important to know. And last but not least, I think Claude Code is a step in the right direction and a step to the future of RevOps and what we expect to see. We work with a lot of go-to-market teams and RevOps teams to help them implement Claude Code, and we actually see the impact this makes on a day-to-day basis. If you're interested in getting this presentation so you can share it with your team and use it as a reference point, drop a comment down below and I will send over this presentation for you to use. With that said, thanks so much for watching, guys. I wish you the best of luck out there. Good luck.